Brian is back again. So Brian, thank you very much for joining me again. I'm super stoked to have you on. So maybe you can tell the audience what you thought about the earnings and were you surprised? And then we can jump into the episode, go into the Cybertruck deep dive.
So when the earnings came in at 66 cents, I was surprised. I would have not guessed that. So good thing I didn't try and ballpark it, because it wouldn't have come out well. But everything else in that call was good news to me. Everything in that report was good news to me. A lot of things that we were told we shouldn't count on anymore were still there. The idea that there's still $500 million a quarter in ZEV credits is magical. This is free money. This is other companies paying Tesla to build factories, to build more machines that build the machines. And it's huge. You can't overlook it. And there's, that's not real money. It turns out it is. They're real dollars that you can really spend. And why did because we heard those were going away. Why didn't they go away? Because when the legacy car companies came back strong after shutdown, they didn't come back strong in EVs. They came back strong in internal combustion. They need more credits. And who's got the most to sell appears to be Tesla.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the audience, maybe you can explain what ZEV credits are, because...
Sure. Sure. So the idea is governments around the world set up these programs saying, look, you need to get better gas mileage. You need to get to at least, 30 miles an hour, 50, whatever it is, some number. And if you don't hit that number, you need to pay some massive fine or buy credits from somebody who's overproduced clean, high energy, high efficiency vehicles. So when you look at that, the idea, so a good example was Fiat Chrysler. For a long time, they were giving Tesla, back when it was still Fiat, before it was Stellantis, when it was Fiat Chrysler, they were giving them like $100 million a quarter to offset their low efficiency dyno burners. And so what would happen, and you'd get these cynical people saying, well, if those weren't there, they wouldn't have, any profit at all.
Any profits, yeah.
Any. And for a time that was true. But the flip side was also true. If Chrysler was forced to pay the fines instead, they probably wouldn't have had any profit. So both companies got to show a profit. And instead of building their own, and these credits are available to anyone. If you and I would like to build a car company that makes electric cars, we can sell our EV credits to other companies who have chosen to continue polluting and clouding up our skies.
Absolutely. So interesting stuff here for everybody who didn't know that. Of course, this is totally relevant still for Tesla, but if we could... or didn't have those credits, Tesla would still stand in a pretty strong position still. And
yes.
They are not reliable on those things. No, they don't rely on those things, I mean. And still they are doing a pretty great job. And this is just a cherry on top for them to have in the bank. And that's pretty good. So, yeah.
It's the icing on the cake. It's the icing on the cake, but Tesla still has the cake. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Another thing we saw that was important in the earnings report was that the mega packs are still rolling out in increasing numbers. And despite huge price cuts, they're at 25% margin. And while people were complaining that 66 cents per share were not good earnings, they still had a 17.9% margin on their automotive side, which is
crazy,
very high. It's not quite industry leading, but it's right at the top.
So this margin factored in already from the price cuts that we've seen, or how do you see that? Do you think this will just show up in the next quarter, or
so the price cuts? The price cuts happened early in the quarter. So I'd say most of them have already been realized. But the other thing we saw on that was that the cost of goods sold went down by more than the margin was, more than the price was reduced. So that means, and we don't know when those prices had fallen or how much they may continue to fall. They're always working on additional efficiencies. We know partway through the quarter, Texas was shut down for 3 weeks to improve efficiency. That's going to result in a lower cost to build. We know the Highland is a cheaper car to build than the original Model 3. And then in Q1, we expect to see the Model 3 Highland coming out of Fremont. That'll reduce costs again. So everywhere you look, I would not be surprised to see additional price cuts coming on some models in some markets over the coming 2 quarters.
I also
while maintaining good margins.
Yeah, totally. I also see that. I can imagine that Tesla, with their cost of goods lowering right now or being lower, that this will be, again, such a competitive advantage when you look forward to when they ramp up their production. Of course, they need to do that to get to those high numbers that Elon announced. Like at 2030, he wants to have 20 or 10 million, he said, but also 20 could be possible. So again, a lot of here, the Elon factor, you have to maybe calculate that out, but I assume 10 million could be possible. Do you also think that we are still on track to reaching 10 million? Or
10 for sure. 10 for sure. The compact, if you build a factory making the compact car and it cranks out less than 2 million when fully ramped, I'd be very surprised. And to think that a compact factory or 2 or 3 won't be ramped by 2030 is losing sight of everything. I think that would be very, very unlikely.
Interesting. I mean, if you look at what Tesla is doing, the factories were retooled. Many factories had some delays or timings or standstills. If you look at the Cybertruck now, if you compare it, they are kind of not really on track. They must have had huge difficulties getting this thing out. You could really hear it in the earnings call. Do you see that as pretty mission critical or something? Is it as dangerous as I try to paint it in this picture or in this thumbnail, especially you've clicked on? So
I would say no. Now, Elon had some comments on the call that I think were overinterpreted. Some people, when he said, if this fails, we dug our own grave. And people took that to mean, oh, he did dig his own grave. This was a mistake. Nope, that's not what I heard him say. And I also heard him say, well, the ramp is going to be difficult because getting this all, it's costly and challenging. And people said, oh, I thought it was supposed to be simple. The finished product is supposed to be simple. Building the assembly line is not necessary. No one said building the line was going to be simple. They said that once it's running, it'll be simple. And that's what you want in, look at the efficiency of trains. But building train tracks is a lot of work. You do it anyway because it's worth it in the long run.
So Tesla is not in danger with the Cybertruck, but we still had some numbers that it's getting kind of delayed, the production ramp. They estimate to be fully ramped in 2025, where they can reach 250,000 Cybertrucks per year. That's what I have in mind. The costs of the Cybertruck will reach the point that the Cybertruck is profitable, not this year, not next year, but maybe in 2025 again. So how do you view this information we've got?
Okay, so those are the 3 big ones. I was on the stream live when it happened, when Elon said 2025, and an analyst said 3 years, and he said, no, that's not how calendars work. Think more like 18 months. 18 months to get a product to full ramp is pretty good. Shanghai was able to get the Model 3 up in 12 months and the Model Y up in 12 months. But those were both just about miracles when they did them. And those were on well-known, well-understood vehicles using well-established and tested production methods in Fremont. So to get it to 18 months on a thing that's never existed before is pretty good, I think. So that's the first part. The 250,000 units at fully ramped, I saw people saying, oh, that's what a flop. What a terrible. I mean, that would make it one of the worst selling trucks. Really? 250,000 is a lot of units. That would actually put it at fourth best, assuming that the three ahead of it don't lose any sales, which they very well could. So, and that's 18 months from now, we're talking about the fourth best selling truck in the biggest truck market in the world. That's pretty good. If Model 3 had gotten to number 4 among sedans in 18 months, we'd be doing a little happy dance. So I don't see that as a bad number. And and then the second part to that was people were saying, well, weren't they supposed to be making millions? That's unobjective. That is one objective. But the line that they're putting in has a capacity of 250. They would just put in another line or 2 or 3. But to remember, the best-selling truck is the F Series, not the F-150. It's all the Fs, the 150, 253, all of them, the Super Duty, all of it. So, and those are made in like 5 or 6 different factories. They're made in a lot of places. So they're lumping a lot of cars under one umbrella by doing that. That'd be like if the 3 and Y were just considered one car. So, because you're talking some very different trucks that are all called F Series, but even when you combine them all together, they top out around 1 million a year. So if this is going to be at a quarter of that on its second full year of production, that's pretty good.